Here we go.
Listeners of the T.R.O.N podcast, 2026 is a great year. Thank you for being a dedicated listener and subscriber. Today, we have a very special guest today, and I think this topic is very important, particularly how much we use technology. Don't really understand, how it can work against us in ways because we're so accustomed to it. And he's a very good advocate of against the ageism, as well as teaching people over the age of 50 how to use technology. From our neighbor up north, Michael Routhier. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rashad, for having me, and thank you for the great introduction. I'm glad to be here, and it's an honor.
Yeah, we've touched base a couple times, and I think we're very synchronized when it comes to, technology has come a long way. You can be a Luddite, at one point in life, but I think now it's probably not a good thing. But having said all that, it definitely takes advantage of us, and I'm looking forward to you spreading your knowledge. So first of all, what do you do, and how did you get in your background of educating people about technology?
Wow. So currently, I am the founder of Tech4GrownUps. That is Tech, the number 4, Grown-Ups. And what we are is other than being just an advocate, we also offer coaching and mentoring literacy, tech literacy for those who are 55 and over. Currently, we have a YouTube channel. We actually have 2 YouTube channels. And we also have a coaching and mentoring platform, which is starting this year. So 2026 is a new year. I actually formed all of this in 2025, in the middle of 2025. But as for my previous background, I was a project manager in the corporate world for many moons. So I had the opportunity of working in platforms. The company I worked for had its own proprietary software, and I had to learn how to use that. Believe it or not, I don't have an IT degree. And I'm self-taught. I come from the generation, and especially those before me, that you pulled yourself up by your bootstraps and you learned what you needed to do in order to make it happen. And here we are.
Right. And I think one of the most amazing things is, I think, we've gotten so accustomed to technology that it's funny when we open a letter up, we wouldn't give our information over. We're like, yo, this is spam. Right away, you're throwing it in the trash can. But when it comes to voluntarily giving your information over to an app, website, or something of that nature, you can't do it fast enough, right? Or you get enticed by that free offer, you get enticed by that ad, and all these things particularly can hit vulnerable people who are not as technology savvy as older generations can be. I say this because, when somebody dies, for instance, right, the obituary is visible across multiple platforms now, and identity thefts can happen. And then you always read your local paper or your local blog of unfortunate incidences where, the older senior citizen got taken advantage of or scammed out of, their pension or their funds. So what do you do to educate those people who are particularly vulnerable?
That's a great question. And I'm glad that you asked that, because that is one of the reasons why Tech4GrownUps exist. Right. Let me give you a little backstory on that, because this coincides with what you're asking. So for over 10 years, I've helped family members, friends, all kinds of people, neighbors, how to use their devices. This simple task like you and I take for granted of sending a text message or composing an email, right? But the one thing is that what they don't understand, and actually this just happened recently within the last few months, a family member reached out and said, hey, listen, I got an email from Amazon saying that I didn't make my payment this month. So I was like, okay, hold on. First things first is let's stop and ask yourself a question. Do you have an Amazon Prime account?
Right. Basic question.
And the answer,
101.
Yeah, stop. Just stop and think. This is what I teach everyone. Just stop and think for a minute, because what happens is, like you said, in the beginning, we had this knee-jerk reaction. And that is because we want to do the right thing. Oh my God. The one that Rashad, you know this one is, you have unpaid parking tickets, or that.
Oh my gosh, man! Yeah, they were like, "Yeah, you were in Pennsylvania. Please pay this right away." And you're like, "Dude, listen, man, I haven't driven in Pennsylvania in quite some time." Knee jerk, you're automatically assuming because it's parking. Maybe I was somewhere, right? Maybe you didn't look at the respective city and the details of it. Because if you go to downtown Detroit, you go to a major downtown area, there is pay for parking. And you're like, "Dude, did I forget to do that?"
Correct.
Yeah.
And that is the hackers. That is a way that they prey on people, but they're preying on a generation that was the generation and still is. They want to do the right thing. Oh my God, I don't want to have any problems, or I'm gonna be taken to court for this. I better pay this now so I don't have any issues. So exactly is what prompted this is those messages, the way that they, how can I say, that they prey on people. It's something urgent. It's something to not give you time to think about. And that's what I for anybody, and especially if you're listening to this podcast, please, if you get anything like that, stop and think. You have to try to make sense of this first. Well, first of all, like you just said, was I even in Detroit? No,
Yes.
I've never been to Detroit.
Right.
So how
Right.
could I have a ticket? Number two is to also look at those links. One of the things is that I say, like with my family member, I said, what I want you to do is go to the email address that it came from and just highlight that. I want to see
Right.
the email address, because the hackers, the bad guys are getting good at this, because when they do, like, it's from customer service at Amazon.com,
Mhm.
like if it's customer CUSTO, but they're putting a 0.
Yes.
But you look at it, you glance at it quickly. Oh, it's customer service at Amazon.com. This has got to be legit.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so,
It's dirty, man.
but these are the things. So to answer your question, I kind of went around, and I apologize. You need to stop and think first and look at all of these things before you even say this is legitimate, because 99.9% of the time it's not.
Well, here's the even worse part, right? So, like, how fast do you scroll past the privacy policy when you're trying to upload or get your brand new phone, right? Like, literally, like, I mean, like, I'm guilty of it, right? I don't think there's a soul that, like, all you want to do, like, if you broke your phone, you did an insurance scam, you get a brand new toy, right? You literally just doom scroll it straight to the bottom so you can hit yes to both boxes, right? And meanwhile, it's basically saying we will sell all your information willingly, and you did it, right?
Correct. And that is 99.9% of the problem, because everybody's in a rush.
Yep.
Look what just happened now. I had to download a new browser so we could talk.
Exactly.
So I had to click through these things so I could hurry and get on this, right?
Oh yeah.
The one thing, and like you and I've talked before, patience is a virtue, and that is a virtue that takes time to acquire. For anyone listening to this, and especially for like our students, because I've conducted multiple focus groups, and the one thing is, yes, they do want to exhibit patience, but there's a element of anxiety. So when they get anxious, when you tend to get anxious about something, you want to rush through it.
Of course, absolutely.
And that's the issue. So it's a double-edged sword. But yes, you're correct about the terms of service, or the, anything that the guidelines. People rush through things, and actually just did a video on this the other day, talking about AI and home AI products, such as the Amazon Alexa, Google Nest, and also like even your phone. People don't understand when you don't read what those the warnings are. What we do with that information when we gather it, like right now, the conversations that you and I are having, our phone, it is recording
everything.
Correct.
I saw your video about that, right? So, like, and to interject, right? Like, because me and my wife, we have jokes about this. Like, you'll be like literally be talking about like a random show on like Paramount Plus or something like that, and then next thing you know, your phone is bombarding you with advertisements of that show, right? And you're
Correct.
like, and and it's I was thinking of the movie The Enemy of the State with Will Smith and Gene Hackman. God bless the soul of Gene Hackman, phenomenal actor, right? And you're like watching this movie in 1998, and this is kind of like when AOL is like getting big, and I'm like 14 or 15 when that movie comes out, and you're like, nah, man, that's just paranoia, man. They're not really watching, right? Like, how they always had like the crazy character that was in the basement, but like they were always the outlier. This couldn't be real. They're the super paranoid person. And then all of a sudden you're sitting in your house, and all of a sudden you're talking about stuff, and your TV's, getting bombarding you with stuff that you were talking about. Your phone is too. And I'm thinking back like 25 years. Well, damn, that's exactly what was taking place the entire time. I wasn't paranoid enough.
Right, but the thing is there are so many back doors that people don't know about. Like, here's the thing: you just hit the nail on the head. One of the issues is you're talking about, let's say, a trip to Hawaii, and then the next day you go on your phone, you go on an app, a particular app, and there's an advertisement there about hotel stays in Hawaii.
Swear to God, absolutely.
The issue is that these companies, and Apple's one of the best ones. I'm going to say that. Google and some of the other ones are when it comes to this, but they allow these marketing agencies to buy this information from them. They sell the data.
Absolutely.
They're selling your conversation, and that conversation stays in servers, and those company servers, indefinitely. There's no we only hold on to it for 365 days, whatever the case may be. No, it's indefinite. So if you were talking about something with your wife that was confidential. The other part that even gets me is Amazon hires third-party contractors to listen to these conversations so they can make sure for accuracy.
That's what they were having issues with Alexa, right? So people were constantly, you're talking to Alexa and you think it's like and full disclosure, I am not anti-technology. I'm using a recording software platform right here now, right? Like, so there's really no good way to getting out of it. So for anybody who's listening, like, we're just talking about the privacy and your information disclosed over. We're not hypocrites here because we're using technology. Just for anybody who's, like, so, but what is funny is like, oh, I'm using Alexa. This is so cute. My kid's talking to it. They're playing songs. It's like, yeah, okay, man. Then they're just waiting for you to subscribe to the music platform. It's paid, $20 a month because you like a certain amount of songs. And then it's tailoring your music to you. And then next thing you know, you just subscribe because you have to have it.
Correct. And that's actually what AI is doing right now. And AI it's good and bad at it because it also puts you in a box. Because it's trying to, the more you interact with it, whether it's you're interacting with ChatGPT or, the AI on your phone, it's trying to create a persona of you. This is who you are. These are your beliefs. Absolutely. Now, I want to go back for a minute. You had mentioned something. There are steps in those videos you see. I put instructions on how to pretty much stop it as much as you can.
Right.
You can turn off settings, this, that, and the other. And what happens is they're not recording you any longer or sharing that data. But once an update happens, then that all goes back to default.
Of course. Absolutely. And there's a reason why they don't really advertise DuckDuckGo, right? And full disclosure, right? Like when you've used DuckDuckGo, the search results are not very robust and very good, right? Like there's a trade-off. You can definitely get the high level of privacy you're speaking of, right? But like if you're looking for, your local hotel stays, it's very, very it's very bare bones, so to speak, right?
Correct. So, and that's something that they don't want you to use because they want to get as much information from you as possible.
Right. So, what I found fascinating too is obviously we talk about the digital divide, which, you talk very, very deeply on. And I saw obviously some of the articles that you've written. And I think, obviously when the pandemic happened, it really highlighted a lot of things because I think people who live in either urban or suburban or very highly congested areas have an assumption that technology is readily available, right? You have running water, you have internet, you have all these amenities that are just second nature to you. But then you realize that, a quarter of the population in both of our respective countries don't have internet access, just don't have it. And you're like, so how did you, when you were researching that, how starking were some of the numbers and figures that you brought up and saw?
Wow, I'm glad you asked that. So I did do a white paper on the gray ceiling. We'll get into that in a minute. I got some stats from that. But the stats that I have is the current white paper I'm working on right now is how the digital exclusion is a civil rights issue. And you've touched on certain topics of that. That is correct. We make this assumption, and you know what they say about the word assumption, that that they make, that everybody has internet access. So in the U.S. alone, 57% of seniors who are 65 and over have internet access, while 95% of young adults have internet access. So that means that 43% of seniors 65 and over in the United States do not have internet access.
Correct.
Think about that. Ponder that for a minute, because that's millions of people.
Yes.
And also, because this is a human rights issue, it's a civil rights issue, but it's a human rights issue because in 2016, 2021, and 2023, the UN actually said that internet access is a basic human right.
Isn't it crazy?
It's amazing. And you and I have discussed it previously. These companies, they don't want to part with the money. I mean, I agree with you on capitalism. Yeah. Companies should make money because they have bills to pay. They have people to provide a salary for. Those people need to put food on the table for their families, and I completely agree. But utility companies are able to do the same thing.
Well, yeah, it's funny because we talked about it, right? Because there was a story in it was Tennessee. I don't remember. I believe it was Knoxville. They had like a gigabyte utility because they a lot of people live in areas that simply it's not economically feasible. I mean, even Google stopped laying fiber in certain areas because when you're talking about permits, digging up things, it's very easy to say they should just do that. Go do that, Comcast. Go do that, AT&T. And then you're like, listen, man, they have to get engineers, they have to get construction crews. But the basic premise of it all was that townships took matters into their own hands. We're like, okay, we're going to have our own public utility and get gigabyte internet. And then when they wanted to expand to the next town, then it became a problem, right? Then it was like,
Yes.
the state stopped it, right? The state or the local, and then it was like, and then instead of getting a gig or, the fastest internet possible, it got outsourced to Comcast. It's a contract. I'm not making this up. Anybody can look this up. It's absolutely true. And then they did it at a reduced speed, right? Because they didn't want the utility companies to expand that. And for anybody looking at the outside in, you start you start asking some very questions like how did that happen and why did that have to go that route? You were never interested until they decided to expand.
No, and that is you hit the nail on the head with a couple of things there. One, there's plenty of money to go around, and if you really look at business, you look at like the big tech companies. I mean, come on, when you're talking billions of dollars, now millions become lunch money, right? It really does. It's chump change, that's the thing. But you had said something earlier, and I want to touch on that. During COVID, what people don't understand is that there are real world consequences for not having,
without question,
not only just tech. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So without question.
Yeah, without having not just the internet, basic internet, but also not having basic tech literacy. During COVID, and this actually really bothers me, there were seniors who died alone. They didn't get to say goodbye to their families because they didn't know how to initiate a video call. They didn't have access to telehealth like everybody else did. Right. These are real consequences. And, as human beings, as our society should be ashamed because we're so technologically advanced.
I think one of the things that also happens is that we, and I've never gotten really a good answer about this, but I'm sure that there's some political, and I've never had a political show and I don't intend to, but I'm sure there's some red tape and other things that involve itself. And that is, you can purchase anything across this country that you want, irrespective of your zip code, right? Like you're in Canada. If I wanted something from Canada, I could certainly go ahead and purchase it. But for some strange reason, and I've never been able to figure this out, an internet service provider doesn't go to a certain territory, even if they're placed in your state. Even if the neighborhood next door literally can, you can be a zip code across the street, different town. Oh, we don't come over here. And you're like, I don't understand that. You can buy Verizon, you can buy AT&T, you can buy T-Mobile, you can buy all the other, cell phone carriers and keep it moving. But for some reason, there's a red line when it comes to the internet service provider that doesn't go to your territory. And there's no good explanation for it. And in 2026, it's really indefensible.
Well, my explanation for it, my hypothesis,
collusion,
is when they. I'm sorry, second.
Collusion.
Yeah, well, that's one, but the other one too is when they do their due diligence. It's all about the dollars and cents, the bottom line. If I go ahead and take a zip code, whether it's in in the U.S. or in Canada, I can actually find out the gross median income. Right. So now I have to look at, if I'm going to invest to lay fiber in an area, but that area only has a median income, and especially I'll give you for one, let's just say like Buffalo, New York. Let's use that for an example, because I do know about that. They have a very low income. I think the median income there is less than $30,000 a year. So would that company really invest, $3 to $5 million of laying that cable in a area that's not going to bring that it's about ROI, the return on the investment. It's not going to bring them back that investment for a long time, if ever.
100%.
It's about money.
Yeah, and then the question becomes is that, do taxpayers foot the bill from a utility standpoint, from a bond? It gets very muddled. And so, obviously when it comes to those particular topics, I mean, again, it's I can't tell a company how to spend its money because, at the end of the day, no matter what charitable arm they may have, they certainly have shareholders. And if they're private, they still have to make a profit, et cetera, et cetera. It seems very odd that these companies, particularly on the internet side, when it comes to, cell phone service, you can ping off anything. But when it comes to internet, fiber optics and lines, there's a very distinct service line of who can use what. And I don't know what the answer is. You'd like to think that at some point that places, companies wouldn't have these respective territories, so to speak. because it's supposed to be
Correct.
the free market, right? That's how that's supposed to. It's supposed to be the free market. So if you're willing
Absolutely.
to get a service, why can't they lay a line in a respective area? And I get that there's um you know local areas and jurisdictions, but the idea that they simply don't service a certain area, I mean
Correct.
that just seems very out of date. Maybe at one point when AT&T was the dominant service provider in the entire North America, but I think we've well passed that Rubicon.
The one thing you had said, I want to touch on that for a minute. During my research, and it's something I guess we take for granted, but we never really knew. Those that have come before, the generations before me, before my generation, and even before theirs, if you really think about it, they are the founders of what we have, the internet,
Of
the current
course.
technology we have. They laid the foundation. But what people don't understand, and I really never knew, I was like, wow, this is interesting. Their taxpayer money founded the internet. I really want you to think about that for a minute. I did not know that for a lot of the companies that helped form the internet, they had received those grants and all that money from the government, which was taxpayer money.
Of course.
Now,
Absolutely.
keep that in mind. The taxpayers paid for it, but yet not all of them can reap the rewards. Is that fair? No.
Yeah, I watched a documentary on the laying of the transatlantic cable line, right? So, for people who don't know, like that was the very first precursor of the internet. It was actually it's off the coast of, I believe, either Newfoundland or Nova Scotia, and it connects
Yes.
underneath the Atlantic Ocean to the coast of England because they wanted to trade commodity prices in real time, irrespective of time zone differences, right? So that, and then
Correct.
I don't remember the gentleman's name because I watched a documentary like 2 years ago. And so basically they had to take two ships, meet them halfway in the middle of the Arctic, bind them together, and then it was just trial and error from there, right? They had to figure out what's not going to corrode, what proper steel, make electrical, and then they're using the telegraph system. And then if it failed, they had to sail all the way back to the other side,
Yeah.
and then just keep trial and error. And it cost a lot of money. And the gentleman whose name escapes me failed. But the point is,
Mm,
after multiple attempts, and to your point, being subsidized by taxpayer money and funding, and some private
correct.
investments too, it finally worked. And then when it did work, those cable lines are still used for the internet right now. And there's dozens of them
Correct.
laid across the world. And that was the first internet. Like that was your first fiber optics. It was at the beginning of the golden age of the industrial revolution. And a lot of people don't think that. But you're like, yeah, that was the beginning of immediate telegraph and internet service, even if it wasn't called that.
Correct. You're right. And that's the other thing too. Now that's even something that needs to be protected. As you can see, some bad actors want to go ahead and what's it, we'll cut it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, like really?
It's just
I
amazing
mean,
that thing's still actually working. I mean, I don't know if it's still it's sitting at the bottom of the ocean right now, irrespective of all the
correct.
different things that have taken place, right? And then it's still down there at the bottom of the. It's just it blows your mind that thing is still down there.
It goes back to, like I had said earlier, the generations that came before us, they were more than capable because they laid the foundation. And in this instance of what we're talking about, that's one of my, because for me, it's a moral responsibility. Um, what happened is these tech companies, and a lot of them are guilty. They excluded those people that built it.
Mhm.
They excluded them. Now those people are in their, they're what, in their 70s, 80s.
Mhm.
And well, how do I do this?
Right.
There's nothing for them, and it's sad. It really is sad. But I'm glad that you shared that because it's again, it's a technological marvel,
It
but it
is.
needs to be celebrated by those who created it.
It really, when you're watching that, and it's because ultimately, what this show is all about is knowledge. And if anybody who listens can gain a little bit, learn a little bit, Google something a little bit, I'll be the first to admit that sometimes the technology that I use, it's gotten so robust. And I'm a child of AOL, so I always had that kind of mentality where it was just on to the next one, on to the next one. You go from dial up to 25 megabytes, which seems lightning compared to dial up to where you're at right now. Like seriously, right? You're in your dorm room. Right?
56K.
When you're in your dorm room in college, you're like, this is the best thing ever. Like, I mean, I'm connected to everything. And however, saying that, every time you plug in, you're voluntarily selling your information at lightning speed.
Correct.
You truly are.
Correct. You are, and there's no getting around it other
Yeah.
than, using maybe a VPN or, locking down your system. There are ways of getting around it, yes, but for the
Right.
average person to invest that time or it's just be careful of what you share.
Absolutely.
That's what I have to say. I mean, we're doing everything online, and that's even going back to the issue of you had asked, some of the numbers that I had found. It's amazing because 65 and over adults in the US, 83% of them feel that they are inadequate when it comes to technology.
Right. Right.
And when you have that, that's a staggering number.
For sure.
But I'll give you one even better. 99.6% of those who are 65 and over in China
Okay.
have no technological use.
Wow.
They were completely excluded. Now that's a whole situation you want to talk about government,
Right. Right.
culture.
Right. There's a different,
But I
there's a
mean,
different,
it's
reason based on
but in
certain government structures.
correct. But in all, it's 100 million people, 100 million people that have been left behind. And what you had said earlier about that, trying to, hey, let me show you how to protect yourself. I first need to give you a solid foundation of tech
Right.
understanding, and
Yeah.
that's what we do.
Right.
Yes, I can. Let me rephrase it. I can show you how to make your phone block these things, but if you don't understand how or why it does it, I'm not doing you any favors.
I mean, it's something so simple of like, you'd love to turn off your location on your phone, right? Because you're just like, dude, I don't want you like, but then, you can't even get like the maps to work. And I get it. Like, I'm not an idiot, right? But it's like, listen, man, why do you need to know where I'm at? And then becomes a
Right.
pain in the butt to turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off. And then it asks you, like, you'll leave Kroger or your local, you guys have shoppers or, you'll have, and
Yeah,
then next, like, how's your experience? You're like, seriously? Like, really? Like, seriously? You really, like,
I
you're
was
like,
just there.
are you kidding me right now? Like you just left the Hilton hotel and you're like, how was your experience? You're like, you know what? I think I need to turn that thing off again because this is not cool.
Correct.
This is not
It,
cool.
it, it should, and in some instances, like especially, and again, I'm an Apple nerd. I've
Yeah,
used Apple for over 35 years now.
yeah,
Okay, that tells you how old I am. But
yeah.
the funny thing is, they give you the option of what you want to share.
Mm-hmm.
See what I mean?
Nice.
So you
Nice.
will get what I like about the tracking, let's just say, especially again for older people, like our mothers, our fathers, our grandparents, you want that because in case ever something, Lord forbid, ever something happens
Yes.
to them, you can find them. You
Right.
know that I'm all about. But like you said, leaving the grocery store or a hotel, how was your experience? Man, damn, I haven't even gotten home yet. Don't
But it really does test, and now you're so numb to it, you just like you don't even you may not even turn that feature off, right? You're just like, okay, that's just part of that's just something I have to live with, right? You know what I mean?
conditioned,
You're totally conditioned
conditioned,
to it. It's really, yeah,
conditioned.
it's pretty crazy, man. And and we want to get started on what it's like if you search for something on the internet. Obviously, YouTube is Google and Google is YouTube, and then next you go to YouTube and what you looked up is like a video similar to what you were, and you're just like, man, like
Correct.
it, my
Correct. They're
goodness.
creating your profile.
Yeah, oh, for sure, for sure. You know, but listen, like ultimately, people have decided to voluntarily hand over this information. The question is how much it's disclosed, because ultimately, it's all about the disclosure, and that's why they've had to cover themselves legally multiple times. So, and that's a different story unto itself. For
Correct.
anybody who's listening, the golden rule of it is if it's free, you're not the customer, you're the product being sold. Right. That's really what it
That is
boils down.
correct. You're the test subject in
You
in
are.
certain instances as well.
Absolutely.
It's
It,
it's sad.
it
I
really,
mean,
it's just the world we live in, man. And ultimately, they
correct.
have money to make, and if you think that the genie's out of the respective bottle, so to speak, so it's not turning its way back because when they find it economically feasible enough to go to certain areas and territories, whether it's internet companies or providers, trust me, it'll happen. You know,
Yeah, and the one thing too, and this is going to sound, much, but I'm hoping that we can change that before they find it economically viable. I hope that we can make it because again, the UN said that it's a human right. Now, pushing it as such, and I really want you to think about that. If the government entities and even private entities are taking everything online,
Mhm.
whether that's your banking, whether that's telehealth, all of these things you had said earlier, remember the term redlining, and that was something that banks did back in the day to keep certain people in certain neighborhoods.
Right.
This is no different because you're keeping people, how can I say, where they're at. And by not putting that internet in there, again, I firmly believe internet should be a utility that should be $20 a month. Yeah. In all honesty, let's be realistic. It's like your water, your electricity,
It's
of course,
come to
goes up
that
and
point,
down.
you know,
Yes.
it's in, again, it's so muddled because, you know, you have to, no matter how good people feel morally about a certain cause, at the end of the day, you know, you guys have Rogers and you guys have Bell. They're not in the, you know, they have their respective charitable arms, but they're not a 531c. You know, they're just not, right? It's just not how that's not how they function or operate. And, you know, it always straddling the line between, you know, the public good and making a profit is a struggle that society has, you know, I'm not the judge of that but ultimately there's definitely a very complex situation right there, because on paper, you can sit on your couch as a human being and be like, why? Right. And, you just don't understand it, right? And so, you know, even if you drive, you know, you live just outside of, you're in the Toronto area.
Yeah, Toronto area, correct.
Right, you're Toronto. So go, you know, I've been up there. You drive, you know, 40 kilometers from there. There's not a lot of internet service, right? There's just, and you're just like, holy smokes! I was in this one of the biggest cities in the world, and you go 40 kilometers, an hour and a half outside of there. There's no internet.
Correct. And it's, I mean, even some areas still have dial-up.
Yes. And then, you know, what's happened here now, you know, in the States is that a lot of the cable internet companies aren't even being into digital boxes anymore. Aren't even, you know, they're like, hey, you know, so I have WOW, right? And WOW's like, hey, we're not doing, you know, cable boxes for people who still subscribe to cable. We're just going to do just everything, either partner through YouTube or we're going to do everything through a digital app. Well, to your point, if you're that over 65 person and now they're no longer going to be subscribing to, you know, to having a person come out to you, if you don't have internet, now there's a double whammy, because maybe you were dealing with just antenna and TV service, which they changed to digital, you know, 15, 16 years ago. And now you don't even have a person that's going to come out there and bring in, install a cable box for you. So, and you're oblivious to it at the same time. You'll never know that actually happened.
Because it's under the guise of progress. It's under the guise of advancing. We're making advancements because now you don't have to have a box. Use the app. But again, our parents, our grandparents, they don't have the first clue. Example, for a family member, they actually, I won't even tell you the company, but she needed a modem to be replaced because it was older, you know, but it's one of their modems. It's the company's modem, right? You know what they did? They didn't send a tech out. They just sent her a new modem.
They just send the modem. Yeah, they just send the router. They just send the router. Hey, have a good day at it. Like,
exactly. I mean, I did it for her, which is fine. But what happens to the ones that don't have someone to do it for them?
Not a clue. Not a clue. Not an absolute, I always laugh about this, right? So we're so conditioned to technology and the internet. I'll tell a little personal story. So one time near my neighborhood, the internet went out because a drunk driver hit the utility pole, right? Hit the utility pole. So anybody who's had their internet go out, in their house, like maybe you can survive if you're single. But if anybody who has small children, it's like the apocalypse might as well have taken place, right? So like, you want to talk about 2 days of like sheer terror in my household, right? Tears were real, like the screaming, like you just like, you serious, right? Because then you don't realize like your TV is set up to the internet, your home security system is set up to the internet, every laptop, you are literally cut off from the world. Correct. Literally just from the internet going out, right? And you're like, oh my God, you can't do anything. And if you, God forbid, you have your thermostat set up, or you have we can go on this all day, but literally just for 2 days, there was no TVs, tablets didn't work, and all the human emotion that could be wrought from that. You'd have thought it was like the Twilight Zone when when all those people were hiding like in the storm cellar because they thought like the alien invasion was taking place. And it turns out it was just like U.S. fighter pilots and all the neighbors turned on each other at the same time. Like that's what started happening, right? And you're just like, really? Seriously? Go read a book, man. The lights are still on. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh, you hit the nail on the head again of how it is a basic right. And think about the ones you have internet because you're paying for it, but think about the ones that don't have internet at all.
For sure. It's certainly, a reality. And even though we joke and laugh, we can joke and laugh about it because it's part of our everyday livelihood.
Correct.
And I don't
Correct.
have the answers. I certainly, have my opinions, but, I'm glad that you're in this space to be able to share that information. And it has been an honor and a pleasure to have you on the Randomness of Nothing podcast, because this show is built on curiosity, growth, and interesting people. And I want 2026 to continue that trend. And so, Michael Routhier, stay warm up there because it's cold down here.
Yes, sir.
And real quick, let me ask you, where can people find you?
Sure. So basically, you can find us in a number of different places. One on YouTube, where Tech4GrownUps, it's TECH, the number 4, Grownups. And also we have Tech4GrownUps, same thing, Tech4GrownUps.com. That's our website that talks about our coaching and mentoring program. Mm-hmm. And we also have, utilizing that same name, Tech4GrownUps, on Instagram, Facebook. You can find us. We're out there. But look forward to having everybody stop by. We have all kinds of information. And if you ever have questions, you can email me at contact@tech4grownup.com.
Thank you very much. And again, nobody on this show is a Luddite. We use the technology to get our messages out. So nobody here is, it's a responsible thing. It's no different than, tying your shoes and make sure you don't trip. Right. So that's how technology is supposed to operate now. And we've gotten so accustomed to handing over information. Sometimes we have to do our due diligence before we just hit submit. So
correct.
Thank you very much, Michael, for all the work that you do. And it's been an honor and a pleasure.
And thank you, sir. It's been an honor being on your show.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.